The Boston winter was particularly harsh that year, with snow piling up outside the windows of my small office in the industrial district. I was reviewing the quarterly reports of my modest tech repair business when my phone buzzed with a message from my younger sister, Amanda. Emergency family meeting at Mom and Dad's tonight. Dad says attendance mandatory. Something about your business. I sighed, already knowing what this was about. For the past 3 years, I, Sarah Mitchell, had been running my own electronics repair shop while my family ran their much larger electronics retail chain, Mitchell Electronics. They never approved of my decision to strike out on my own instead of joining the family business. My father, James Mitchell, was particularly vocal about his disappointment. A Mitchell should be running Mitchell Electronics, not fixing broken phones in some shabby workshop, he would say at every family gathering. What they didn't know was that my shabby workshop was just the visible part of my business empire. 3 years ago, I had invested my inheritance from my grandmother in acquiring Apex Components, the primary supplier for Mitchell Electronics and several other major retailers in the Northeast. I kept my ownership private through a holding company, managing everything through trusted proxies while maintaining my repair shop as a cover. As I drove to my parents' luxurious suburban home that evening, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. They thought I was struggling while unknowingly paying millions to my company every year. The family was already gathered in the living room when I arrived. Dad sat in his leather armchair like a king on his throne. Mom perched nervously beside him. My sister Amanda and her husband Tyler occupied the sofa, both wearing expressions of mock concern. "Sarah, sit down," Dad commanded, gesturing to the lone chair positioned directly across from him. Classic interrogation setup. I complied, maintaining a neutral expression. "We need to discuss your situation," he began, his voice carrying that familiar tone of condescension. "The family has been watching your little experiment with concern." I raised an eyebrow. "Experiment? This repair shop fantasy of yours?" Amanda chimed in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "We've heard things aren't going well." Of course they had. I had deliberately kept my repair shop's profits modest, reinvesting most of the revenue into improving service quality rather than expansion. To outside observers, it might appear that I was barely staying afloat. Dad leaned forward, his expression serious. "Your business is failing," he announced to everyone. "We are taking over." I sat quietly as they laid out their plan. They would graciously absorb my repair shop into Mitchell Electronics, giving me an entry-level management position at one of their stores. "It's time to stop this foolishness and join the family business properly," Dad declared. Mom nodded encouragingly. "We're doing this for your own good, dear." I listened as they discussed my future, as if I wasn't in the room. Amanda was already suggesting which of my employees to fire. Tyler was calculating how to liquidate my equipment. Finally, Dad pulled out a document. "We've already drawn up the paperwork. Just sign here, and we'll handle everything." I took out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the number for Apex Components' public line. The room fell silent as I hit the speaker button. "Apex Components, how may I direct your call?" A professional voice answered. "Hi, this is Sarah Mitchell, the owner, speaking. I'd like to speak with Marcus about our supply contract with Mitchell Electronics." The color drained from my father's face. Amanda's mouth fell open. Mom grabbed Dad's arm in shock. "One moment, Ms. Mitchell," the receptionist replied. Dad stood up, his face turning red. "What kind of game are you playing?" I smiled, finally letting my mask fall. No game, Dad. I've owned Apex components for the past 3 years. Every component, every circuit board, every piece of technology in your stores. You've been buying them from me. The silence in the room was deafening. Then Marcus's voice came through the speaker. Ms. Mitchell, how can I help you today? Just checking in, Marcus. How are our friends at Mitchell Electronics doing with their payments? All current, Ms. Mitchell. Their latest order for the spring quarter just came in yesterday. Shall I process it? I looked at my father's shocked face. Hold that order for now, Marcus. I'll call you back about it tomorrow. Very well, Ms. Mitchell. I ended the call and stood up, picking up the takeover document from the coffee table. Slowly, deliberately, I tore it in half. Now, I said calmly, I think it's time we had a real discussion about the future of our business relationship. The room remained frozen. Through the window, snow continued to fall silently on the Boston suburb, marking the beginning of a very different kind of family meeting. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly in the silence. Dad's face had turned from red to purple, a vein pulsing in his temple. Amanda sat frozen, her perfectly manicured hands gripping Tyler's arms so tightly her knuckles were white. This is impossible, Dad finally sputtered. Apex Components is owned by Sterling Industries. I smiled, pulling out my tablet. Sterling Industries is a holding company. My holding company. I pulled up the corporate documents and turned the screen toward them. Would you like to see the ownership papers? Mom found her voice first. But how? The purchase price for Apex would have been $37 million. I finished for her. Grandmother's inheritance was quite substantial. While you were all busy mocking my little repair shop, I was using it to learn the industry from the ground up. Every component, every supplier, every market trend. You manipulated us, Amanda accused, her voice shrill. All those times you came to family dinners, pretending to struggle, manipulated you? I laughed quietly. Like you manipulated Davis Electronics into bankruptcy last year. I heard all about that at the supplier meeting. Their desperate calls to Apex for payment extensions. The way Mitchell Electronics swooped in to buy their assets at half price. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. He had orchestrated that takeover, earning himself a promotion to Chief Strategy Officer at Mitchell Electronics. Dad stood up abruptly, his business instincts taking over. Fine. You've made your point. Let's discuss this reasonably. What do you want? I sat back in my chair, enjoying the shift in power dynamics. First, let's talk about pricing. Mitchell Electronics has been getting preferential rates from Apex for years. That's changing effective immediately. You can't do that. Amanda protested. We have contracts. Contracts with annual review clauses. I corrected. Perhaps you should have read the fine print more carefully. The spring quarter order you just placed, the prices are going up by 15%. Dad's face paled. He knew what that would do to their profit margins. That's extortion. That's business, I replied coolly. Just like it was business when you tried to force me out of my shop today. Mom stepped forward, attempting to play peacemaker. Sarah, dear, surely we can work something out. We're family. Family? I pulled out another document from my bag. Like when you and Dad tried to block my business loan application at First National Bank last year. As a concerned parent, I believe the letter said. They had the grace to look embarrassed. That attempt to sabotage my business had backfired. It was what prompted me to start recording all our interactions. Here's what's going to happen. I continued, my voice firm. Mitchell Electronics will accept the new pricing structure. You'll sign a 5-year supply contract with Apex at market rates. No more preferential treatment. And you'll stay completely out of my repair business. Or what? Dad challenged, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. I smiled. Or I'll start supplying your competitors at a discount. I wonder how Riverside Electronics would feel about getting components at 20% below what you're paying. The threat hung in the air. Riverside was their biggest competitor in the Northeast, and such a price advantage would devastate Mitchell Electronics' market share. Tyler, ever the strategist, spoke up for the first time. This could destroy the company. Thousands of people could lose their jobs. That's your choice to make, I replied. I'm just offering a fair business arrangement. The same courtesy you showed me today. Amanda stood up, tears of fury in her eyes. You've been planning this all along, haven't you? Playing the struggling daughter while secretly plotting to take over. Take over? I laughed. I don't want Mitchell Electronics. I built something of my own. Something you all thought I couldn't do. I'm just making sure you never try to interfere with my business again. Dad sank back into his chair, suddenly looking older. You're just like your grandmother, he muttered. She always said you were the one who inherited her business sense. Yes, she did, I agreed. She also warned me about family and business. I should have listened sooner. I stood up, gathering my things. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. The new contracts will be delivered to your office at 9 a.m. Sign them, or I start calling your competitors. As I walked toward the door, Mom called out, Sarah, wait. What about Sunday dinners? The family gatherings? I turned back one last time. I think we all need some time to reevaluate what family really means. Don't you? The snow had stopped falling outside, leaving a pristine white blanket over everything. As I drove away from my parents' house, I caught a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror, still standing in the doorway. Dad was on his phone, probably calling his lawyers. Amanda was crying into Tyler's shoulder. I felt a mix of triumph and sadness. This wasn't how I had wanted things to play out, but they had forced my hand. Tomorrow would bring tough negotiations and probably more family drama. But for now, I had one more stop to make. I turned my car toward the industrial district, where my shabby workshop waited. The lights were still on, my dedicated team working late as usual. They were the real reason for my success, not just my ownership of Apex. It was time they knew the whole truth too. The night was far from over, and I had a feeling the real storm was just beginning. The next morning, Boston's financial district was already buzzing with activity when I arrived at my office in the Apex Components building. I had spent half the night explaining everything to my repair shop team, who were shocked but supportive. Now it was time for the real battle to begin. My phone had been flooded with messages since dawn. Missed calls from Mom, angry texts from Amanda, and several emails from Tyler marked URGENT. I ignored them all and focused on preparing for the 9 a.m. meeting. At 8:45, Marcus, my VP of Operations at Apex, entered my office. The Mitchell Electronics legal team just arrived. All 6 of them. He handed me a coffee. Your father's with them. I nodded, not surprised. And Amanda. She's in the lobby with Tyler. They're demanding to be part of the meeting. Let them come up, I said, straightening my jacket. The more witnesses, the better. At precisely 9 a.m., they filed into the conference room. Dad led the charge, followed by his lawyers and Amanda and Tyler. Their expressions ranged from anger to disbelief as they took in my presence at the head of the conference table in the Apex headquarters. "Before we begin," Dad announced, "I want to make it clear that we contest the legitimacy of your ownership claim." I smiled and gestured to my own legal team. "Feel free to contest it. The paperwork has been ironclad for 3 years. But while you waste time and money on pointless litigation, I'll be having some interesting conversations with Riverside Electronics." One of Dad's lawyers whispered something in his ear, and his face tightened. They knew I had them cornered. "The new contracts," I said, sliding folders across the table. "As promised. Market rate pricing, 5-year term, no early termination without penalty." Tyler grabbed a copy and started reading, his face growing increasingly pale. "These terms, they'll cut our margins by at least 40%. "Welcome to the real market," I replied. "You've been getting artificially low prices for years. That ends today." Amanda slammed her hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. Daddy, we can't accept this. There must be other suppliers." "There aren't," Tyler said quietly. "Apex controls 60% of the component market in the Northeast. The remaining suppliers couldn't handle our volume, and overseas suppliers would mean months of delays." Dad's lawyers huddled together, whispering furiously. I could see them realizing just how thoroughly I had planned this. Then Mom burst into the room, tears in her eyes. "Sarah, please. I've been up all night thinking about this. We can work something out. We're family." "Family?" I stood up slowly. "Let me tell you about family, Mom. 3 years ago, when I started my repair shop, I came to you for advice. You told everyone at the country club that I was going through a phase. When I needed a small business loan, Dad tried to block it. When I won the Best Local Business Award last year, Amanda told everyone it was just pity votes." I pulled out a stack of papers from my briefcase. "Here's a collection of every email, every message, every attempt you've made to undermine my business. Would you like me to read them out loud?" The room fell silent. Even the lawyers looked uncomfortable. "But here's what you never bothered to ask," I continued. "Why did I start a repair shop? Because I saw how many customers were struggling with expensive electronics they couldn't afford to replace. While Mitchell Electronics was pushing new products, I was helping people fix what they had. My little shop has helped over 3,000 families keep their devices running." Dad scoffed, but I noticed Tyler looking thoughtful. "And Apex," I went on. "I bought it because I saw how Mitchell Electronics treated smaller retailers, squeezing them with high prices while you got special deals. That ends today." I pushed another document across the table. "This is my final offer. Market rate pricing for everyone. No more preferential treatment. And a clause requiring Mitchell Electronics to establish authorized repair centers for your products." "Repair centers?" Tyler leaned forward, interested. "Like your shop?" "Exactly. You've been fighting against the right to repair movement, making it impossible for independent shops to get parts. That changes now. It's not just good ethics, it's good business." Amanda looked at Tyler in surprise as he picked up the contract and started reading more carefully. "This could actually work," he muttered. "The repair centers could generate steady revenue, build customer loyalty." "Absolutely not," Dad thundered. "We are not turning Mitchell Electronics into a repair shop chain." "No," I agreed. "You're adapting to a changing market. Sign the contract, and I'll even help you set up the repair center network. Refuse, and I start calling your competitors in an hour." Dad turned to his lawyers, who nodded grimly. They knew they had no choice. "I'll need to take this to the board," he said finally. "You have until noon," I replied. Oh, and one more thing. I slid a final document across the table. My repair shop. It's now an authorized Apex Components Training Center. We'll be certifying technicians for all these new repair centers. Mom burst into fresh tears, but they weren't entirely sad tears. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of pride in her eyes. The meeting ended with Dad and his lawyers retreating to Mitchell Electronics headquarters for an emergency board meeting. Amanda followed them out without a word, but Tyler lingered. "You planned this perfectly," he said, a note of admiration in his voice. "Want to get coffee? I'd love to hear more about your repair center network idea." I looked at him suspiciously, but his interest seemed genuine. "Sure," I agreed. "But if this is some kind of ploy..." He shook his head. "No ploys. I think you might have just saved Mitchell Electronics from becoming obsolete. Your father's too proud to see it yet, but you're right about where the market is heading." As they left, Marcus approached with a new stack of messages. "Riverside Electronics has been calling all morning. They heard rumors about changes at Apex." I smiled. "Tell them I'm in meetings all day. Let them sweat a little. The next few hours would determine the future of both Mitchell Electronics and my relationship with my family." But for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally being seen for who I really was. Not just the rebellious daughter, but a businesswoman in my own right. The storm I had started was far from over, but at least now everyone knew exactly what they were dealing with. The Mitchell Electronics board meeting ran over the new deadline. At 12:01, I was about to start dialing Riverside Electronics when my office phone rang. It was Dad's private number. "The board has approved the contract," he said, his voice tight. "With one condition." I waited. "They want you on the Mitchell Electronics board as well, as head of the new repair division." I hadn't expected that. "Who proposed that?" "Tyler did, and..." I seconded it. The admission seemed to cost him something. I could hear the years of pride cracking in his voice. "I'll think about it," I replied, and hung up. Over coffee earlier, Tyler had shared some uncomfortable truths about Mitchell Electronics. Their sales were declining as consumers became more environmentally conscious and repair-friendly. The company needed to evolve, but Dad had been resistant to change. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "We need to talk, alone." I agreed to meet her at my repair shop. When she arrived, her designer heels clicked against the workshop floor as she took in the busy space. Technicians were working at various stations, carefully bringing dead devices back to life. "It's not what I expected," she admitted, watching a young technician delicately repair a smartphone screen. "I always pictured you working in some dark basement." "That's because you never bothered to visit," I replied. She flinched. "I deserve that." She turned to face me. "Tyler showed me the projections for the repair center network. It's impressive. You're not just fixing phones, you're building something sustainable." "That was always the plan." "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked. "About Apex, about all of this? Would you have listened? Or would you have tried to take control, like you did yesterday?" She was quiet for a moment. "I was jealous," she finally admitted. "You were always the smart one, the one grandmother believed in. When you started this shop, I thought I was finally better than you. Working at Mitchell Electronics, wearing expensive suits, looking down on my sister, the repair technician. And now I realize you saw the future while we were clinging to the past." She gestured around the shop. "This is where the industry is heading, isn't it? Sustainability, repairs, customer service." "It is," I confirmed. "The question is, Are you ready to be part of it? Before she could answer, the shop's door chimed. Mom walked in, looking out of place in her pearls and cashmere sweater. I hoped I'd find you both here, she said softly. Your father's on his way too. Sure enough, Dad's car pulled up minutes later. He entered the shop slowly, taking in the busy workspace with new eyes. Your grandmother would be proud, he said quietly. She always said business wasn't just about profits. It was about building something worthwhile. That's what I've been trying to do, I replied. I know that now. He pulled out a folder, the signed contracts, and something else. Inside was a formal apology from the Mitchell Electronics Board for their past attempts to interfere with my business, along with the board membership offer. We're not asking you to give up anything, Dad explained. Keep running Apex and your shop. But help us transform Mitchell Electronics too, not as our supplier, but as our daughter. I looked at my family, Mom's hopeful smile, Amanda's newfound respect, Dad's difficult but genuine attempt at reconciliation. On one condition, I said, the repair network starts here, with my team. They've earned it. Agreed, Dad nodded. Tyler's already working on the implementation plan. He says you two had quite a productive coffee meeting. Speaking of your team, Amanda added, we need to talk about expansion. If we're rolling out repair centers across the Northeast, you'll need to train more technicians. I might have some ideas about that. I smiled, thinking of the training program I'd been developing. That evening, after the papers were signed and plans were made, we gathered for an impromptu family dinner, not at my parents' formal dining room, but at the small cafe next to my shop. The same cafe where I'd first dreamed up my business plan 3 years ago. To new beginnings, Mom proposed a toast, and to old wisdom, I added, thinking of grandmother. Dad raised his glass. To the future of Mitchell Electronics and Apex Components. And to family, Amanda concluded, who sometimes need to be broken apart to grow stronger together. As we ate and talked about the future, I watched my repair shop through the cafe window. The lights were still on, my team still working. Tomorrow, I would tell them about the expansion plans, the opportunities ahead. They weren't just repair technicians anymore. They were pioneers in a changing industry. 6 months later, the first Mitchell Electronics authorized repair center opened in downtown Boston. The ribbon-cutting ceremony featured the entire Mitchell family, with Dad and me sharing the scissors. The photo made the local business news. Mitchell Electronics embraces right to repair movement. A family business evolution. My repair shop became the flagship training center, with Amanda surprisingly taking a keen interest in the educational program. Mom started a sustainability initiative within the company, working to reduce electronic waste. Even Dad found his passion again, mentoring young entrepreneurs who wanted to open their own repair centers. The family dinners resumed, but they were different now. Instead of judgment and competition, there was collaboration and respect. We weren't just a family business anymore. We were a family that had learned to appreciate each other's visions. As for me, I kept my office in the repair shop, even after the Apex Components revelation. It reminded me of where I started and why. The small desk where I'd first dreamed of changing the industry now shared space with certificates, awards, and a simple framed photo of my grandmother. One evening, as I was locking up, Dad stopped by. He picked up a framed article from my wall, the first review my repair shop had ever received. You know, he said thoughtfully, your grandmother once told me something I didn't understand until now. She said, the best business leaders don't just build companies. They build bridges. I smiled, thinking of all the bridges that had been built and rebuilt over the past 6 months. She also said something else. I replied, sometimes the strongest foundations are built on broken ground. Outside, the Boston sunset painted the sky in shades of possibility. Through my shop window, I could see the Mitchell Electronics sign glowing in the distance, now proudly advertising sales and services. Between the two businesses stood the city we served, full of people who needed both our products and our help maintaining them. We had found our balance, as a business, as a family, and as a force for change in an industry that needed it. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't winning the fight, but transforming it into something better than victory.